The gun smoke and desert dust had barely settled on the horizon when Katherine Michaels stumbled into Rattlesnake Gulch, clutching her younger sister's hand with what little strength remained in her trembling fingers. The year was 1876, a time when the American frontier was as unforgiving as it was vast, and Catherine, known simply as Kate, to those who earned the privilege, had lost everything but the clothes on her back and the child whose welfare now depended solely on her. "Just a little farther, Sarah," Kate whispered, her throat dry from the 3-day journey across the scorching New Mexico territory. Her once fine dress, now tattered and stained with the remnants of their escape, hung limply around her thin frame. At 22, she had aged years in mere days. 8-year-old Sarah nodded, her small face pinched with exhaustion, but her eyes holding the stubborn trust of a child who believed her older sister could fix anything, even homelessness, even destitution. The main street of Rattlesnake Gulch stretched before them, a dusty artery lined with weathered buildings. The setting sun painted everything in hues of amber and gold, casting long shadows across the dirt road. Kate's gaze landed on the town's saloon, the Rusty Spur, where light and raucous laughter spilled from swinging doors. "Wait here," Kate instructed, settling Sarah on a bench outside the general store. "Don't talk to anyone." Inside the Rusty Spur, Xander Reed dealt the final hand of poker with the practiced precision of a man who'd spent more years at card tables than was probably wise. At 30, his face bore the weathered lines of hard living under harsh sun, but his eyes remained sharp, missing nothing, especially not when a woman clearly out of place pushed through the saloon doors. The room quieted as Kate entered, her chin held high despite the state of her appearance. She approached the bar with determined steps, ignoring the stares of the patrons. "I'm looking for work," she announced to the barkeeper, her voice steady despite the desperation clawing at her chest. "Any kind of respectable work?" The barkeeper, a burly man with a gray, streaked beard, looked her up and down. "Ain't hiring, miss. Try the hotel down the way." "I've tried the hotel, the general store, and the cafe," Kate replied, her composure cracking slightly. "No one's hiring." From his corner table, Xander studied her with interest. Unlike the other men whose gazes held a predatory gleam, his expression was contemplative. He noted the fine stitching on her ruined dress, the educated accent, the proud set of her shoulders even as she stood there clearly at the end of her rope. "There's always work for a pretty lady in my establishment," came a silky voice from behind Kate. She turned to face Madame Lorraine, the owner of the town's brothel, dressed in velvet finery that seemed garish in the dusty saloon. Kate's face paled. "I thank you, but no," she replied firmly. "I have my sister to consider." Madame Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "Children need to eat too, darling." Xander stood then, his chair scraping against the rough wooden floor. He was tall, broad-shouldered in a faded blue shirt, with a leather vest and worn denim pants that had seen better days. The Colt revolver strapped to his thigh had definitely seen worse ones. "The lady said no," he stated simply, his voice carrying across the now hushed room. He approached Kate, tipping his hat slightly. "Xander Reed, I heard you're looking for work." Kate regarded him warily. "Yes, Mr. Reed. My sister and I are in need. I've got a ranch about 5 miles outside of town. Need someone to help with cooking, cleaning, and such." His offer came matter-of-factly, with none of the suggestive undertones she'd been fielding all day. Hope flickered in Kate's eyes before suspicion doused it. "And what would your wife think of that arrangement?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Don't have one. Just me, a lot of cattle, and too much dust." Kate hesitated. Taking a position in a single man's home was hardly proper. But the alternatives were dwindling by the minute. Before she could respond, the batwing doors flew open and Sarah burst in, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged face. "Kate, a man tried to take me," she cried, flinging herself into her sister's arms. Kate's eyes widened in alarm as a rough-looking man followed Sarah into the saloon. "The brat kicked me," he growled. "I was just asking what she was doing out here alone." Xander stepped between Kate and the man. "Seems to me the kid's got good instincts, Jackson. Best move along." Jackson sneered but backed away. "Didn't know she belonged to Reed," he muttered, retreating to the bar. Kate clutched Sarah tightly, her eyes meeting Xander's over the child's head. The vulnerability in her gaze struck him hard. "We have no home," she said softly, the admission clearly costing her pride. Xander's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Then I'll share mine till you find yours." The simple words hung in the air between them, a promise, an offering, a lifeline. Kate searched his face for deception, for the cruel catch that had to be there, but found only steady resolve in his green eyes. "We don't need charity, Mr. Reed," Kate said finally. "It's not charity, it's work," he replied, "and it comes with a roof and meals. Take it or leave it, miss." "Michaels, Katherine Michaels, and this is my sister Sarah." She straightened her shoulders. "When do we start?" "Right now," Xander said, placing his hat back on his head. "My wagon's outside. Got supplies to load? Then we can head to the ranch before nightfall." And so Kate found herself seated beside this taciturn cowboy on a wagon bench, Sarah dozing between them, heading towards an unknown destination as the sun dipped below the horizon. The desert landscape stretched endlessly around them, beautiful and terrible in its vastness. "You're not from around here," Xander observed, breaking the silence that had stretched for nearly a mile. Kate kept her eyes on the dusty trail ahead. "St. Louis. Originally. Long way from home." "Home is gone," she replied curtly, making it clear the subject was closed. Xander nodded, respecting her boundaries. "Well, the ranch isn't much to look at, but it's quiet. You and your sister will be safe there." Safety. It seemed like such a distant concept to Kate now. But as the wagon crested a small rise and she saw the sprawling ranch nestled in a valley below, with its sturdy main house, barn, and corrals, she allowed herself to feel the first tentative stirrings of hope. The Double R Ranch, as Xander called it, was indeed modest compared to some, but it was well maintained and, most importantly, isolated from the troubles that had followed Kate across half the country. As they pulled up to the house, a Mexican man emerged from the barn. "Manuel," Xander called. "This is Miss Michaels and her sister. They'll be staying with us for a while." Manuel nodded respectfully. "The rooms are ready, Patron. Supper too." Kate glanced at Xander questioningly. "Manuel's wife, Elena, comes up from their place down the valley to cook a few times a week," he explained. "I sent word ahead when we were loading supplies." "You were that certain I'd accept your offer?" Kate asked, her pride momentarily flaring. Xander's expression remained impassive. "No, madam, but I was hopeful." The simple honesty in his words disarmed her. Kate gently woke Sarah, and they followed Xander into the house. The interior was surprisingly welcoming, clean and functional, with sturdy furniture and a few touches that hinted at comfort rather than mere necessity. Elena, a kind-faced woman in her 40s, greeted them warmly and showed them to a small but tidy bedroom with 2 beds. "For you and the Nina," she said to Kate. "Bathroom is down the hall. I have put fresh towels." Kate thanked her, then turned to Xander, who stood awkwardly in the doorway. "Mr. Reed, Thank you." He nodded once. "Get some rest. We can discuss your duties tomorrow." With that, he left them to settle in. That night, after Sarah had fallen into an exhausted sleep, Kate sat by the window, staring out at the star-filled sky. For the first time in weeks, she allowed tears to fall freely down her face. Tears of relief, of fear, of uncertainty, but no longer of complete hopelessness. She had no idea what the future held, or if she could trust the quiet cowboy who had offered them shelter. But for tonight, they were safe. For tonight, that was enough. Morning arrived with the scent of coffee and bacon. Kate dressed quickly in one of her two remaining dresses, the less damaged one, and helped Sarah prepare for the day. The kitchen was warm and inviting, with Elena bustling about the stove while Xander sat at the table reading a newspaper. He stood when they entered. "Morning. Hope you slept well." "Better than we have in some time," Kate admitted. "Thank you." Breakfast was a quiet affair, with Sarah too shy to speak much, and Kate still guarded. Afterward, Elena departed for her home, leaving Kate alone with Xander and her sister. "I thought the little one might like to see the new foal in the barn," Xander suggested, noticing Sarah's restless fidgeting. "If that's all right with you, Miss Michaels." Kate hesitated, then nodded. "Go on, Sarah, just be careful." As Sarah raced outside with his Xander, Kate began clearing the breakfast dishes. Through the window, she could see them walking toward the barn, Sarah skipping alongside the tall cowboy, looking up at him with curious eyes. There was something about the way Xander slowed his long strides to match the child's pace that made Kate's chest tighten. She spent the morning exploring the house, cataloging her duties. It was larger than it appeared from outside: 4 bedrooms, a study, kitchen, dining room, and a comfortable sitting area. Everything was functional rather than fancy, but clean and well kept. Clearly, Elena took her responsibilities seriously. When Xander and Sarah returned, the girl was chattering excitedly about the foal. "His name is Starlight because he has a white star on his forehead," she exclaimed to Kate. "And Mr. Reed says I can help feed him." "That's wonderful, Sarah," Kate smiled, relieved to see some of her sister's natural exuberance returning. Xander cleared his throat. "Miss Michaels, if you're feeling up to it, I'd like to show you around the property, explain what needs doing." The tour revealed a well-run operation. 20 ranch hands lived in the bunkhouse a quarter-mile from the main house, managing nearly 2,000 head of cattle across the expansive property. Xander had inherited the ranch from his father 5 years earlier and had steadily built it into one of the more successful operations in the territory. "Your responsibilities would primarily be the main house," he explained. "Cooking, cleaning, mending. Elena will continue to help a few days a week, but she has her own family to care for." Kate nodded. "I'm capable of all that. I was also a teacher in St. Louis. I could teach Sarah here, continue her education." "Good idea. There's plenty of books in the study you're welcome to use." He hesitated. "About your wages?" "Room and board is sufficient for now," Kate interrupted quickly. "Until I prove my worth." Xander frowned. "That's not how I do business, Miss Michaels. You'll receive fair wages for fair work. $20 a month, plus room and board for you both." Kate was startled by the generous offer. It was more than she would have made as a schoolteacher. "That's very fair," she managed. "There's one more thing," Xander added as they walked back toward the house. "The men don't come up to the main house without invitation. You and your sister will have your privacy, but there's talk in town sometimes. People might assume things about our arrangement." Kate understood his meaning immediately. "You're concerned about my reputation." "And mine," he replied with unexpected candor. "I've worked hard to be respected in these parts. Don't need rumors complicating things." "I assure you, Mr. Reed, discretion is in my interest as well." Her voice grew softer. "Sarah and I are hiding from someone dangerous." Xander's expression hardened. "Your husband?" "No," Kate said quickly. "I've never been married. It's complicated." "Most things worth talking about are," he said. "When you're ready to tell me, I'll listen. Until then, you're safe here." The days settled into a comfortable rhythm. Kate threw herself into her duties, grateful for the purposeful exhaustion that allowed her to sleep without nightmares. Sarah blossomed in the wide-open spaces of the ranch, following Elena around the kitchen, helping Kate with simple chores, and spending hours watching the horses in the corral. Xander was often gone from sunup to sundown, returning tired and dusty from working with his men. He was unfailingly polite, but maintained a careful distance that Kate both appreciated and, increasingly, found herself questioning. There was something about the quiet cowboy that intrigued her, the gentleness with which he treated Sarah, the respect he showed to his workers, the intensity in his eyes when he thought no one was watching him. 2 weeks after their arrival, a tremendous thunderstorm struck in the night. Sarah awakened screaming, terrified by the booming thunder and lightning that illuminated their room in stark flashes. Kate held her close, murmuring reassurances, when a knock came at their door. "Everything all right?" Xander called through the wood. Kate opened the door to find him standing there in his nightclothes trousers hastily pulled on, and an unbuttoned shirt revealing a glimpse of his chest. She quickly averted her eyes. "Just the storm," she explained. "Sarah's afraid." Another crack of thunder sent Sarah diving under the covers with a whimper. "I might have something that could help," Xander offered. "If you don't mind." He returned moments later with a small, intricately carved wooden box. Sitting on the edge of Sarah's bed, he opened it, and a gentle melody filled the room. "A music box," Kate breathed. "My mother's," Xander explained, his voice softer than Kate had ever heard it. She was afraid of storms, too. Sarah peeked out from the blankets, her tears subsiding as she listened to the tinkling melody. "It's pretty," she whispered. "You can keep it in here tonight," Xander told her. "Music's stronger than thunder any day." Later, after Sarah had fallen asleep to the music box's lullaby, Kate found Xander in the kitchen, staring out at the storm. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That was very kind." He shrugged. "Seemed like the thing to do." Kate studied his profile in the dim light. "Your mother, is she?" "Died when I was 12. Fever." "I'm sorry. Our parents passed last year. Influenza." Xander turned to face her. "Is that why you're running?" Kate tensed. "What makes you think I'm running?" Nobody travels across half the country with just the clothes on their back unless they're running towards something mighty important or away from something mighty terrible. The perceptiveness of his observation struck Kate speechless for a moment. Outside, the storm raged on, rain lashing against the windows. "It's my uncle," she finally admitted, her voice barely audible above the storm. "My father's brother. After our parents died, he became our guardian. He's not a good man." Xander's expression darkened. "Did he hurt you?" "He tried." Kate wrapped her arms around herself. "He gambled away our inheritance, then arranged for me to marry one of his creditors, a man 3 times my age, to settle his debts. When I refused, he threatened Sarah. Said he'd send her to an orphanage if I didn't cooperate. So we ran." "You did right," Xander said firmly. "No one should be traded like cattle." "He'll be looking for us," Kate continued, voicing her constant fear. "He won't stop. The money from that marriage would have solved all his problems." "He won't find you here," Xander promised. "And if he does, he'll have to go through me first." The fierce protectiveness in his voice made Kate's heart quicken. "Why are you helping us? You don't even know us." Xander was quiet for a long moment. "My father used to say a man's measure isn't in what he takes, but in what he gives when there's nothing in it for him." "There's always something in it," Kate said softly. "Even if it's just the knowledge that you did right." "Maybe." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Or maybe I just got tired of eating my own terrible cooking." The joke, unexpected from the serious cowboy, startled a laugh from Kate. The sound seemed to surprise them both. "You should do that more often," Xander said. "What?" "Laugh." His eyes held hers for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "It suits you." With that, he wished her good night and left her standing in the kitchen, her heart beating an unfamiliar rhythm that had nothing to do with fear. The storm marked a turning point. Something had shifted between them, a tentative trust forming in the sharing of vulnerabilities. As spring blossomed across the ranch, Kate found herself watching Xander more closely, the confident way he handled his horse, the respect his men showed him, the rare but transformative smile that lit his face whenever Sarah showed him her latest discovery. For his part, Xander began spending more evenings at the house rather than with his men. He taught Sarah to play checkers, listened attentively as she read aloud from her lessons, and occasionally joined Kate on the porch after Sarah was asleep, sharing comfortable silence as they watched the stars. One such evening, as May gave way to June, Xander mentioned a trip to town the following day. "I was thinking," he said carefully, "you and Sarah might want to come along. Get some new clothes, supplies, whatever you need." Kate stiffened. "Is that wise? If someone is looking for us?" "It's been nearly 2 months. Rattlesnake Gulch isn't exactly on the main routes, and you can't hide forever." He turned to look at her. "Besides, Sarah needs proper shoes. I've seen her favoring that right foot." Kate sighed. He was right. Sarah had outgrown her only pair of shoes, and Kate's own dress was worn thin from constant washing. "All right," she conceded, "but we'll be careful." The trip to town was an adventure for Sarah, who had been confined to the ranch since their arrival. Xander was different in town, more alert, his hand never far from his holstered pistol. Kate noticed how people greeted him with respect, how women eyed him appreciatively, and how he seemed oblivious to it all. His attention focused on ensuring her and Sarah's comfort. At the general store, he insisted on purchasing not just necessities, but small luxuries, ribbons for Sarah's hair, a pretty shawl for Kate, books for them both. When Kate protested the expense, he simply said, "You've earned it. The house has never looked better, and my men haven't eaten this well in years." Later, as they loaded their purchases into the wagon, Kate became aware of a man watching them from across the street, a stranger, his face partially hidden by the brim of his hat. "Xander," she murmured, nodding subtly in the man's direction. "Do you know him?" Xander glanced over, his body tensing. "No. Stay with Sarah. I'll be right back." Kate watched anxiously as Xander approached the stranger. They spoke briefly, the man gesturing emphatically while Xander stood solid as stone. When he returned, his expression was unreadable. "What did he want?" Kate asked. "Just passing through, looking for work." Xander's tone was neutral, but something in his eyes made Kate suspect he wasn't telling the whole truth. The ride back to the ranch was quieter than their journey into town. Sarah, tired from the excitement, dozed against Kate's side while Xander guided the horses with focused attention. "You're not telling me something," Kate finally said. Xander's jaw tightened. He was asking questions about newcomers to the area. Fear clutched at Kate's heart. "Did you—" I told him I hadn't seen anyone matching the description he gave. But Kate? He rarely used her first name, and it caught her attention sharply. "He described you and Sarah perfectly." Kate's face drained of color. "He's found us. We have to leave. Tonight." "No." Xander's voice was firm. "Running again just puts you in more danger. My men are loyal. The ranch is defensible." "I won't put you in danger," Kate insisted. "This isn't your fight." "It is now." His knuckles were white on the reins. "I promised you'd be safe with me, and I mean to keep that promise." Back at the ranch, Xander called Manuel and his most trusted hands together. Without revealing Kate's full story, he explained that she and Sarah were being pursued by a dangerous man who might come looking for them. "Double the watch," he instructed. "No strangers on the property without my say-so. If anyone comes asking questions, you've never seen Miss Michaels or her sister." The men nodded solemnly, their loyalty to Xander evident in their immediate acceptance of his orders. That night, after Sarah was asleep, Kate found Xander cleaning his rifle on the porch. You shouldn't have to do this, she said, sitting beside him. We've already imposed on your generosity too much. Xander set the rifle aside. Is that what you think this is? An imposition? What else would you call it? You took in two strangers, gave us shelter, protection. A home, he said quietly. I gave you a home, and you gave one back to me. Kate stared at him, confused. I don't understand. Xander looked out at the darkened ranch, his profile sharp against the night sky. This place. It was just land and livestock before you came. Somewhere to work, somewhere to sleep. But it wasn't a home. Not since my mother died. He turned to face her, his eyes holding an emotion Kate hadn't seen there before. You filled this house with more than just good cooking and clean floors, Kate. You brought life back into it. Sarah's laughter. You're singing when you think no one's listening. Kate felt heat rise to her cheeks. I didn't realize anyone could hear that. A rare smile touched his lips. It's nice. Reminds me there's more to living than just surviving. The moment stretched between them, fragile and new. Kate was acutely aware of his proximity, of the subtle scent of leather and soap that always surrounded him. I should check on Sarah, she said finally, breaking the spell. Xander nodded, returning his attention to his rifle. Get some rest. I'll keep watch tonight. For 3 days, there was no sign of the stranger from town. Life continued on the ranch with a veneer of normalcy, though Kate noticed Xander's men were always within shouting distance of the main house, and Xander himself seemed perpetually vigilant, his hand never far from his weapon. On the 4th day, Sarah begged to visit the foal, now nearly a month old and her absolute favorite creature on the ranch. Kate relented, walking her to the barn where Manuel was working. Would you mind keeping an eye on her while she visits Starlight? Kate asked him. I need to start dinner. Manuel nodded with a smile. Of course, señorita. She is safe with me. Kate returned to the house, humming softly as she began preparing a stew. So absorbed was she in her task that she didn't hear the front door open. It was only when a familiar voice spoke from behind her that her blood turned to ice. Hello. Katherine, you've led me on quite a chase. She whirled around to find her uncle, Harlan Michaels, standing in the kitchen doorway. He looked much as he had the last time she'd seen him, expensively dressed, with cold eyes that never matched his smile. How did you find me? Kate whispered, her hand clutching the knife she'd been using to cut vegetables. Money asks questions, and eventually, someone answers, Harlan replied smoothly. A station master in Santa Fe remembered a woman and child matching your description. The rest was simply a matter of following the trail. He stepped further into the kitchen. You've caused me considerable trouble, Katherine. Mr. Blackwood was most displeased by your disappearance. The marriage contract had already been signed. I never agreed to marry him, Kate said, her voice steadier than she felt. You had no right. I had every right. As your guardian, your future is mine to determine. His gaze swept around the kitchen. Though I must say, I didn't expect to find you playing house with some backwater rancher. How disappointing. Kate's grip tightened on the knife. Leave now, uncle. You're not welcome here. Harlan laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Don't be absurd. You're coming with me, both of you. I've already collected Sarah from the barn. Terror seized Kate's heart. What have you done with her? Nothing yet. She's waiting in my carriage with my associate, quite looking forward to seeing her big sister again. His smile turned cruel. It would be a shame if anything happened to her should you prove difficult. If you've hurt her? That depends entirely on you, Harlan interrupted. Come quietly, marry Blackwood as arranged, and Sarah will be well cared for. Refuse, and I'll ensure she's sent to the kind of orphanage where little girls learn just how cruel the world can be. Kate felt sick with fear and rage. You're a monster. I'm a businessman, Katherine. And you're an asset I've invested too much in to simply write off. He gestured toward the door. Now, shall we go? Or shall I return to the carriage alone? The choice was no choice at all. Kate set down the knife, her mind racing for a way to save Sarah. If she could just stall until Xander returned. I'll need to gather my things, she said. You need nothing, Harlan snapped. Blackwood will provide everything once you're his wife. At least let me leave a note, Kate pleaded. Mr. Reed has been kind. He deserves an explanation. Harlan's eyes narrowed. Fine, make it quick. And remember, Sarah's welfare depends on your cooperation. Kate moved to Xander's desk in the study, her hands trembling as she penned a hurried note. As she wrote, she heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats. Hope surged within her. Xander was returning early. Harlan heard it too. His expression darkened as he grabbed Kate's arm, yanking her away from the desk. Time's up, move. He dragged her toward the front door, but before they could reach it, it swung open to reveal Xander, his expression changing from relaxed to thunderous as he took in the scene before him. Let her go, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Harlan tightened his grip on Kate's arm. This doesn't concern you, Cowboy. This woman is my niece, and she's coming with me. I don't think she wants to go, Xander replied, his hand hovering near his holstered pistol. Her wants are irrelevant. I have legal custody of both her and her sister. Harlan's free hand moved to his jacket, pulling out a small derringer. And I have the girl. My man will kill her if I don't return shortly. Kate saw the calculation in Xander's eyes, the weighing of options, none of them good. Where is Sarah? Xander asked, his gaze never leaving Harlan. Safe for now, in my carriage down the road. Xander's expression remained impassive, but Kate saw the subtle shift in his stance. How many men with you? Just the one, Harlan replied impatiently. Now stand aside, or her blood is on your hands. He pressed the derringer against Kate's ribs to emphasize his point. What happened next occurred so quickly that Kate could barely follow it. Xander lunged forward, knocking Harlan's gun hand upward just as it discharged, the bullet splintering the ceiling. In the same motion, he drove his fist into Harlan's jaw with enough force to send the older man crashing into the wall. Harlan slumped to the floor, dazed but conscious. Xander kicked the derringer away, then turned to Kate. Are you hurt? She shook her head, trembling with adrenaline and fear. Sarah, stay here, Xander instructed, drawing his pistol. Keep this on him. Shoot if he moves. He pressed his revolver into her hands, but Sarah, I'll get her, trust me. The weight of the gun was unfamiliar in Kate's hands, but she held it steady, pointing it at her uncle who was now glaring at her with undisguised hatred. You'll regret this, Harlan spat, blood trickling from his split lip. The only thing I regret, Kate replied coldly, is not running sooner. Minutes that felt like hours passed. Kate heard the distant sound of a gunshot, then silence. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain Harlan could hear it. Had Xander been shot? Was Sarah safe? The sound of running footsteps finally broke the terrible stillness. The door burst open, and there was Sarah, flinging herself into Kate's arms with a sob. Kate, the bad man took me, but Mr. Reed saved me. Kate embraced her sister fiercely with one arm, keeping the gun trained on Harlan with the other. Xander appeared in the doorway moments later, his expression grim but triumphant. Your uncle's friend won't be a problem anymore, he stated flatly. Is he? Kate couldn't finish the question with Sarah present. He'll live, but he'll think twice before kidnapping children again. Xander took the gun from Kate's hand, then hauled Harlan roughly to his feet. As for you, you have no right, Harlan snarled. The law is on my side. Not out here it isn't, Xander replied. Out here, we make our own justice. He bound Harlan's hands tightly, then signaled through the window. Two of his ranch hands appeared at the door. Take Mr. Michaels to the sheriff in Rattlesnake Gulch, Xander instructed. Tell Sheriff Donnelly there are charges of kidnapping, assault, and attempted murder. I'll be along shortly to make a full statement. As the men dragged Harlan away, Kate held Sarah tightly, whispering reassurances to the frightened child. When they were alone, Xander knelt beside them. "Are you both all right?" he asked softly. Sarah nodded against Kate's shoulder. Mr. Reed punched the other bad man right in the nose. It was just like in the stories. Despite everything, Kate found herself laughing through tears of relief. "My hero," she said, meeting Xander's eyes with a look of profound gratitude. Xander's cheeks colored slightly at her words. Anyone would have done the same. "No," Kate shook her head. "They wouldn't have. You risked your life for us. Again." Later that evening, after Sarah had been tucked into bed with promises that no more bad men would come, Kate joined Xander on the porch. The stars were particularly bright, scattered across the velvet darkness like diamonds on black cloth. "Sheriff Donnelly sent word," Xander said as Kate settled beside him. "Your uncle will be facing trial in Santa Fe. With my testimony and the attempted kidnapping of Sarah, he's looking at a long prison sentence. And the other man? Hired gun. Won't be causing any more trouble for a good while." Xander turned to face her. "Donnelly also said there was never any legal custody arrangement. Your uncle forged the documents." Kate closed her eyes, absorbing this information. "So we're truly free of him." "Yes. You and Sarah can go anywhere now. Do anything you want." There was something in his voice, a careful neutrality that hadn't been there before. Kate studied his profile in the moonlight. "What if what we want is to stay?" she asked quietly. Xander's gaze snapped to hers. "Here." "Yes, here." Kate gathered her courage. "Unless you'd prefer we leave." "No," he said quickly, then cleared his throat. "No, I wouldn't prefer that at all." The admission hung between them, weighted with unspoken meaning. "When I first came here," Kate continued, "I thought it was just a temporary refuge, somewhere to catch my breath before running again. But it's become more than that." "What has it become?" Xander asked, his voice low. Kate reached out, hesitantly placing her hand over his. "Home. It's become home. You've made it home for us, Xander." The use of his first name, rare from her lips, seemed to affect him deeply. His hand turned beneath hers, fingers intertwining. "When you and Sarah first arrived," he said slowly, "I told you you could share my home until you found yours. I never expected—" "What?" His eyes met hers, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "I never expected that you'd become my home, Kate." The words, simple and honest, pierced straight to her heart. Without overthinking, Kate leaned forward and pressed her lips to his in a gentle kiss. When they parted, Xander's expression was one of wonder. "I've wanted to do that since the day you walked into my saloon," he admitted. Kate smiled. "Even covered in dust and looking half wild?" "Especially then." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "You were the bravest person I'd ever seen." This time when he kissed her, there was nothing hesitant about it. It was a kiss that spoke of months of restrained longing, of growing admiration, of deepening love. When they finally parted, both breathless, Kate rested her forehead against his. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Whatever we want," Xander replied. "But I'm hoping it involves you and Sarah staying. Permanently." The following months brought changes to the Double R Ranch. Kate formally accepted the position of ranch mistress, though her duties expanded far beyond cooking and cleaning. With her education, she took over the ranch's books, revealing a keen mind for business that impressed even Xander. Sarah continued to thrive, dividing her time between lessons with Kate and learning to ride from Xander, who had gifted her with a gentle pony of her own. As autumn painted the landscape in golds and reds, Xander took Kate on a ride to his favorite spot on the property, a hillside overlooking the entire valley. "I come here to think," he explained as they dismounted, "to remember why all the hard work matters." Kate took in the breathtaking vista. "It's beautiful. I can see why you love it." "It's not just the land I love," Xander said, taking her hands in his. "Kate, these past months, they've been the best of my life. You and Sarah have brought something to my life I never knew was missing." He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "I know we haven't known each other long, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. Will you marry me, Kate? Make this place our home forever?" Tears filled Kate's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, yes, Xander, I will." The ring was a simple gold band set with a single perfect diamond. As he slipped it onto her finger, Xander explained, "It was my mother's. She made me promise I'd only give it to someone who made me as happy as she made my father." "I'll treasure it," Kate promised, kissing him deeply. They were married on Christmas Day, 1876, in the ranch's living room, decorated with pine boughs and ribbons. Sheriff Donnelly officiated, while Manuel and Elena served as witnesses. Sarah, resplendent in a new dress, proudly presented the rings. "I've never seen Reed smile so much," Donnelly commented to Manuel during the celebration that followed. "That man's found his match." Manuel nodded sagely. The patron needed someone to remind him life is for living, not just working. She has healed something in him that has been broken a long time. As snow began to fall outside, dusting the ranch in pristine white, Xander pulled Kate into a dance in the middle of the living room. Sarah clapped delightedly as they twirled, the gramophone playing a waltz that filled the house with music. "Happy?" Xander murmured against Kate's ear. "Completely," she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "Though I still can't believe how much has changed in less than a year. From having no home at all to having the most perfect one imaginable." "I meant what I said that first day," Xander reminded her. "I offered to share my home until you found yours." Kate smiled up at him. "And now?" His eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled back. "Now it's our home. Forever." 10 years later, the Double R Ranch had grown into one of the most prosperous properties in the territory. The main house had been expanded to accommodate their growing family, Sarah, now 18 and preparing to attend college back east, and their two children, James, age 8, and Elizabeth, age 6. On the anniversary of the day they first met, Xander and Kate stood on the porch, watching their children play in the yard with the dogs. "Any regrets?" Xander asked, his arm around her waist. Kate leaned against him, content. "Not a single one." "You?" "Just one," he replied with mock seriousness. "I should have stepped in sooner that day at the saloon. Saved myself a few minutes of wondering if you'd accept my offer." Kate laughed, the sound carrying across the ranch that had witnessed their journey from strangers to family. "I've always wondered, why did you help us that day? You didn't know us. We could have been trouble?" Xander considered the question, watching their son help Elizabeth climb onto the wooden swing he'd built last summer. "I saw something in your eyes," he finally answered. "Pride, yes. Fear, certainly. But mostly determination. You weren't looking for someone to rescue you, you were looking for a fair chance. I respected that." "And now?" Kate asked, turning in his arms. "Now I thank God every day that you said yes when I offered to share my home." He kissed her forehead gently. "Because in doing so, you gave me so much more than I ever gave you." As the sun set over the ranch they had built together, casting long shadows across the land that had witnessed their love story unfold, Kate Reed knew that home wasn't just the house they'd expanded or the land they'd cultivated. Home was the family they'd created, the love they'd nurtured, and the life they'd chosen together. From that desperate day in Rattlesnake Gulch to this moment of perfect contentment, their journey had been one of courage, trust, and ultimately, love, proving that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the simplest offers. A shared home until you find your own, and a heart generous enough to make it last forever.